Hi, it's Anish Raja from A Raja Properties. I just want to talk to you briefly about some of the issues I faced when I was using letting agents in the past, before I started managing my own properties and started my own agency. One of the things was late rent payments. So if a tenant paid my rent to the agency on the first of the month, sometimes it would take the agency a week for them to transfer the funds over to me. And that wasn't, 15, 20 years ago. That was in the last couple of years, where we have had instant online banking and bank transfers. And I just find it completely unacceptable in today's day and age for an agency to keep hold of your rents for more than a couple of days. And even a couple of days now is really too long. We're in that age where you can do instant bank transfers, like I said. There's no reason for an agency to hold on to your rent for more than 2-3 days. And in the past I had agencies that would hold on to my rents for a week, and it was a bit frustrating because I want the money, it is my rental income. So I don't think it's fair that they should be holding on to money for longer than 2 or 3 days. And as part of my agency, I guarantee you that if I receive the rents on the morning of the rent due date, I will pay that over to you by the next day at the very latest. Most of my transactions, 90% of them are same day. I'll pay the rent over to you, but as a guarantee I'll pay it over to you by the end of the next working day. The second second issue I faced with agencies in the past was a lack of reporting and lack of updates. So if a tenant hadn't paid on time, there wasn't any kind of immediate way of notifying me or informing me that the tenant hadn't paid the rent. I would then wait 2 or 3 days to see if the rent's come in, and if it hasn't, then I'd chase the agent to find out what's going on, has the tenant paid or not. And in one situation, one example a few years ago, I was using an agency and the tenant hadn't paid on the first of the month. I contacted them on the 4th of the month to say, can you confirm if the rent's been paid? I spoke to a junior employee. He looked on his system, he said, yeah, the rent's been paid, we'll go and pay it over to you in the next few days. So I waited another few days, by the 7th or the 8th I still hadn't received that rent payment. I then chased the agency again, spoke to somebody a bit higher up in the chain. They looked at their system and said, actually the rent hasn't been paid, and they're going to have to start chasing the tenant now. And I just completely found that unacceptable. It was, people should be chasing tenants on the very next day or on the same day if they haven't paid in the morning, and that's what I do with my agency. If the rent's due on the 1st, I'll check my accounts in the morning. If I've not received it by sort of 10, 11 o'clock, I'll start calling and emailing tenants to find out what's going on. It could be that it's been a bank holiday or it's a weekend. If the 1st or your rent payment date falls on a weekend, then in most situations the rent won't go through, hit your account until the following working day. So that is completely understandable. But when you're waiting 3 or 4 days and your agency hasn't notified you or updated you, I don't think that's acceptable. The third thing I found when I was using some agents was that their reporting in terms of doing inspections and reporting back to me was quite substandard. Some agencies do use quite fancy technology where they do reports and inspections and then send you a PDF, and it's all well and good doing that, which is quite good, but what I found was that when they sent you the PDF, the images that were attached to those PDFs were very small, and the agencies wouldn't then have the full-sized images. Now if you've got 5 or 6 photos on one page on a PDF, you can't really see much, can you? You can't really go into detail about what's going on in the property. It gives you a brief, very short overview of the property condition, but you can't really see much from a small picture. And I found that with a number of agencies. They did fancy reports, but the photos were very small. So with my agency, I do the same thing. I carry out regular inspections and send PDFs of reports of the maintenance inspection of the inspections to the landlord. But I also go further than that, and I do actually send the full-sized images to landlords so they can see for themselves, in high resolution, each room, the communal areas, the outside areas, the driveway, garage if there is one. So you get a full-sized image of the photographs, not just 5-6 images on one PDF. That's where I differ. And then lastly, where I had a few issues with agencies was in terms of maintenance costs. A few agencies would carry out maintenance works, up to the authorised limit, and they wouldn't send me any paperwork or copies of invoices or receipts relating to that maintenance or repair. So I had no record or proof that it actually did cost them what it said, what they charged me from my rent. So one thing I promised to do to all my landlords is send you a copy of my invoices and receipts, so you can see exactly how much it costs for the repairs and for the maintenance, and there would be no markup or loading of any kind of charges on those fees. What you see is what you get. The contractor will charge me, and that's what I'll charge you. I won't put any markup. That's part of my job, is to manage the property, and I'm charging a commission for that. I'm not going to then load additional fees or charges when it comes to maintenance, but a lot of agencies do that, so just be careful of that. And then finally, the issues I had with agencies was that they didn't have any kind of portal where they saved all your documents, so they'd send you a monthly statement of your rent and your charges and your repairs. They'd send that by email, but it wouldn't be on a portal. So you'd have to file it away yourself, either on your computer or on the cloud, and you'd have to keep on top of filing all the documents correctly. But what I do with my management services and my business is I set up a Dropbox folder for every single landlord client, and each landlord client has their own property folder. So if you've got 3 or 4 properties with me, you'd have 3 or 4 different property folders, one for each property, and within those folders you'd get subfolders with rent statements, subfolders for tenancy documents, subfolders for copies of any invoices, subfolders for copies of the certificates, so gas safety certificates, EPCs, electrical certificates, all those kind of things. Everything will be filed away properly. It saves you from having to file everything yourself, and I'd be updating that every month or every time there's a repair, sending you copies by email, and also then updating the Dropbox folder. So I think in some ways, or in many ways, I go above and beyond what most agencies do. So if you're interested in using my services and you're happy with what I'm proposing, feel free to send me a message or give me a call, and hopefully I'll hear from you soon. Thanks.